Stop. Don't scroll. Something is wrong with your life and you feel it. You smile outside but inside you're drowning. Fear eats you. Regret chains you. Anger burns you alive. And here's the truth, nobody knows. Nobody sees. But one moment is coming that will break you or free you. The question is, which one will it be? Hello, my friend. I want to tell you something very honest. Every day, I walk with a backpack on my shoulders. But this backpack is not real. You cannot see it. Nobody can. Still, it feels so heavy that sometimes I can hardly breathe. On the outside, I look fine. I smile, I work, I drink tea with friends. People think I am normal. But inside, I carry 3 stones. The first stone is fear, the second is regret, and the third is anger. These stones never leave me alone. Fear whispers in my ear, you will fail. You are not strong enough. Regret pulls me back, saying, you should have done better. And anger shouts, life is not fair. People don't respect you. Together, they make me feel tired every day. I tried many tricks to escape. I listened to loud music, I watched videos, I scrolled on my phone until my eyes burned. I told myself, I'm fine, I'm fine. But the truth is, the voices grew louder. My silence only gave them more power. One evening, I sat by the window of my small apartment. The city outside was full of lights and voices. But inside, everything was quiet. I looked at my reflection in the glass and whispered, why am I always so tired, even when I do nothing? That question hurt me. My body was not weak, but my heart felt heavy. I remembered a teacher's words, your thoughts are like stones. Carry too many, and you will break. And I understood. My invisible backpack was full of stones, full of pain. That night, I could not sleep. I turned from side to side, but the stones were pressing on my chest. Finally, I closed my eyes and saw a dream. I was walking down a road with my backpack. Then a voice said softly, put it down. Empty your mind. I woke up suddenly, my heart racing. I turned on the lamp and grabbed my notebook. On the first page, I wrote 3 words, empty your mind. I didn't really understand them, but I felt they were important. They looked like a secret message to me. The next morning, I walked to work. The cars, the buses, the shops were the same as always. But I felt different. I noticed the weight of every step. I thought, if my backpack is invisible, then maybe I need an invisible way to remove it too. At work, I smiled and greeted everyone, but inside my thoughts were new. I wondered if my colleagues also carried their own stones. Maybe my boss had fear, maybe my friend had regret, maybe others had anger. I was not alone in this world. By evening, I was still thinking. I walked home slowly, my notebook in my bag. When I entered my room, I touched the page again. Empty your mind. I whispered, I don't know how. I don't know when. But I will learn. I will find the secret. That night, I closed my eyes with one small promise. I would not carry the backpack forever. I would discover a way to let go of fear, regret, and anger. I did not yet know the path, but I had taken the first step. I was ready to begin. The next morning, I woke up with the same words in my head, empty your mind. I touched my notebook and read the page again. The letters seemed to shine in the morning light. I whispered, where do I even begin? But no answer came. I tried to follow my usual routine. I brushed my teeth, drank my tea, and walked to the bus stop. But something felt different. Now that I knew about the backpack, I could feel its weight even more clearly, pressing down with every step. On the bus, I looked around. A child laughed, a woman sighed, a man looked lost in thought. Everyone stared at their phones. I wondered, do they also carry invisible backpacks? Are their stones as heavy as mine? The question made me curious. That evening, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I walked by the river. The air was cool, the water calm, and the sunset painted the sky with soft colors. I sat on a stone bench and closed my eyes. If only my mind could be like this water, I thought. As I sat there, I heard slow footsteps. An old man with silver hair stopped nearby. He carried a fishing rod but no fish. He looked at me kindly and said, "Strange, you look too young to carry such heavy luggage." My heart jumped. I stared at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" I asked. He pointed gently toward my chest. "I can see it in your eyes," he said. "Fear, regret, and anger. A backpack of stones. Very heavy, isn't it?" I froze. How could he know? "Who are you?" I whispered, half afraid, half curious. He smiled. "Just a fisherman," he said softly. "I sit by this river every day. I catch more water than fish. But I also catch people's eyes. Yours are loud, even when your lips are quiet." I wanted to lie. I wanted to say, "I'm fine, thank you." But my voice broke. Instead, I whispered, "Yes, I carry them. Fear, regret, anger. But I don't know how to put them down. Please, how do I empty my mind?" The old man nodded, as if he had been waiting for this question all along. "First," he said, "you must see each stone clearly. Name it, face it, touch it. Only then can you let it go. Fear, regret, anger, they are guests, not masters. They don't own you." His words touched me deeply. "But what if I lose control?" I asked. He smiled gently. "Letting go is not losing control. It is freedom. Look at the river. It never keeps what falls inside. It lets go. That is its strength. Your mind is the same." I turned my eyes toward the water. A leaf floated past, carried away with no effort. I felt a strange hope in my chest. Maybe I could learn to be like the river. Maybe my mind could flow again, light and free. For the first time, I believed. When I walked home that night, the city looked the same, but my heart felt lighter. I had no answers yet, but I had a guide. As I reached my door, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, I will begin." And this time, I truly meant it. The next day, I returned to the river. The old man was already there, his fishing rod resting quietly by his side. He looked at me and smiled as if he knew I would come back. I sat beside him, my notebook in my hands, ready to listen. He spoke before I could ask. "You said you want to empty your mind. Then you must begin with fear. It is the first stone in your backpack. Without facing fear, you cannot move forward." His words made my stomach twist, but I nodded slowly. Fear had been with me since I was young. At school, I feared speaking in class. At work, I feared making mistakes. At home, I feared the silence of my own thoughts. Fear always whispered, "You will fail." And I always believed it. I closed my eyes and remembered all the times fear had stopped me. I had said no to chances, no to new friends, no to dreams. Not because I didn't want them, but because I was afraid of looking foolish, afraid of not being enough. The old man watched me quietly. Then he said, "Write your fears down. Name them. Put them on paper. When you write, you take them out of your mind and hold them in your hand. They cannot stay hidden anymore. His voice was calm but firm. I opened my notebook and began to write. I fear speaking in public. I fear being rejected. I fear failing at work. I fear being alone forever. My hand trembled, but I kept writing. Each word felt like pulling a stone out of the dark. When I finished, the page was full. I looked at it and felt tears in my eyes. So many, I whispered. The old man nodded. Yes. But now they are no longer inside you. They are here, on the page. That is the first step to freedom. I asked him, but how do I let them go? He pointed at the river. The river never argues with fear. It doesn't fight. It flows. You must do the same. When fear whispers, don't obey. Smile at it, thank it for trying to protect you, and keep moving. His words sounded simple, but they scared me. Could I really live without obeying fear? For years, fear had been my prison guard, keeping me safe but also keeping me small. Now I had to step outside the prison. My heart beat faster. That night, I tried. I spoke up in a small meeting at work. My voice shook, my cheeks burned, but I said what I needed to say. For the first time, fear didn't win. It was still there, whispering, but I didn't obey. I walked out smiling. At home, I wrote in my notebook, today, I carried fear but I didn't let it control me. I looked at the page and felt proud. It was a small step, but it was real. I touched the words and whispered, one stone is lighter now. When I closed my eyes to sleep, I imagined the river. I saw my fear floating away like a leaf on the water. The old man's words returned to me, fear is a guest, not a master. For the first time, I believed it might be true. The next evening, I hurried back to the river. My notebook was in my bag, full of fears written in dark ink. The old man was sitting in the same spot as before, watching the water flow. He smiled when he saw me, as if he had been waiting. You faced fear, he said gently. Now it is time for the second stone, regret. My chest tightened. Fear had been painful, but regret was heavier. Fear stopped me from moving forward. Regret dragged me backward into the past and chained me there. I sat down and opened my notebook. I regret many things, I admitted. My voice was low. I regret not studying harder. I regret hurting people with my words. I regret lost chances, lost friendships, lost time. The list is endless. The old man nodded. Regret is a tricky stone, he said. It makes you believe the past is still alive. But the past is gone. It cannot be changed. Regret is like carrying a dead tree on your back. Heavy, useless, and impossible to bring back to life. I felt tears rise in my eyes. For years, I had replayed old mistakes in my head. Every wrong word, every lost chance. I tortured myself with what if and if only. My chest ached as I realized how much of my present I had wasted on the past. The old man looked at me with kind eyes. Write your regrets, he said. Put them on paper as you did with fear. But this time, after you write, cross them out. That line across the page is your knife. Cut the past loose. I took a deep breath and began to write. I regret not speaking my truth. I regret not being brave. I regret lost time with my family. I regret letting anger control me. My tears fell onto the page, but I kept writing. Then I drew a line through each regret. When I finished, the page looked different. The regrets were still there, but crossed out, powerless. I felt a strange release in my chest, as if I had dropped a bag of stones. I whispered, the past is gone. I can't change it. But I can learn from it. The old man smiled. Exactly. Regret is not a punishment. It is a teacher. You don't need to carry it forever. Take the lesson, then let it go. Keep the wisdom, not the pain. His voice was steady, like the river itself. That night, I practiced. Instead of replaying old mistakes, I asked myself, what lesson can I take? From regret, I learned courage. From regret, I learned honesty. From regret, I learned time is precious. For the first time, regret felt lighter. In my notebook, I wrote, "Today, I faced regret. I cannot change the past, but I can create the future. Regret is no longer my jailer. It is my teacher." I closed the notebook with a quiet smile. One more stone was lighter now. When I fell asleep, I dreamed of walking down the road again. My backpack was still on my shoulders, but it was not as heavy. 2 stones had already fallen away. Fear was smaller. Regret was weaker. I whispered in my dream, "I am learning to let go." The following day, I walked to the river with heavy steps. 2 stones were lighter now, fear and regret, but the third was still burning inside me. Anger. It was the loudest stone, the one that shouted at me even when I tried to stay calm. The old man was already waiting. He didn't ask how I felt. He simply looked into my eyes and said, "Now we come to the hardest stone, anger. It is fire. It can warm your life if you control it. But if you don't, it will burn everything down." I sat beside him, silent. My hands curled into fists without thinking. "I don't want this stone," I whispered. "But it feels stronger than me. Sometimes it controls my words, my face, even my body. I shout, I slam doors, I hurt people I love." He nodded calmly. "Anger is energy. You cannot kill it, but you can guide it. The river never fights fire. It cools it, calms it, carries it away. Your mind can do the same. First, you must see when anger is rising. Do not fight it. Just notice it." His words reminded me of moments when anger had taken me by surprise. At work, when someone ignored my idea. At home, when people misunderstood me. My anger grew so fast, like a storm in my chest. I never stopped to see it. I only reacted. The old man handed me a small stone from the ground. "Hold this," he said. "Imagine it is your anger. Heavy, rough, hot. Feel its weight. Now place it in the water." I did. The river carried it away without a sound. He smiled. "That is what you must do." I closed my eyes and imagined the last time I shouted at someone I loved. My anger had been a fire, but it left ashes in my heart. I whispered, "I don't want this fire anymore. I want peace." My voice trembled, but my heart felt clear. That evening, I tried his advice. When I felt anger rising, I stopped. I didn't shout. I breathed in, breathed out, and imagined the river carrying my stone away. It was not easy. My chest still burned. But I noticed something new, anger passed faster. At home, I wrote in my notebook, "Today, I watched my anger instead of obeying it. I let the river take the stone. I am not a slave to fire anymore. I can choose peace." The words gave me comfort. They were like water cooling the flame. The next morning, when someone at work spoke harshly, I felt the fire spark again. But instead of exploding, I smiled softly and stayed quiet. Inside, I imagined dropping the stone into the river. It floated away, and my heart felt lighter. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something powerful. Fear, regret, and anger were not gone forever. They would visit me again. But I no longer carried them in silence. I could see them, name them, and let them go. My backpack was lighter now. In my dream, I saw myself walking freely. The road was the same, but I stood taller. The backpack was still on my shoulders, but inside it was almost empty. I whispered to myself, "This is the beginning of freedom." And for the first time, I believed it. The morning after facing anger, I woke up feeling lighter. My chest was not burning, my mind was calmer. But when I walked out into the world, I quickly realized something important. Life does not stop giving tests, even when you are learning. On the bus to work, a man pushed past me roughly without saying sorry. My first reaction was fire. I felt anger rising fast, but I remembered the old man's words. I took a deep breath, imagined dropping the stone in the river, and let it go. At work, my boss ignored my idea in the meeting. Normally, this would fill me with fear and regret. My heart would whisper, "You are not good enough." But instead, I said to myself, "That is fear speaking. It is not my master anymore." I spoke up again, even though my voice shook. My boss listened this time. It was a small victory, but to me, it felt like climbing a mountain. I had faced fear directly, and I had not run away. My notebook later would remember this moment. At lunch, I heard two colleagues laughing. For a second, I thought they were laughing at me. Regret pulled at my mind, reminding me of past mistakes. My chest tightened. But then I said quietly, "That was yesterday. Today, I am learning." I smiled at them and kept eating. The laughter no longer chained me to the past. Regret still tried to pull me back, but I refused to follow. Instead, I held on to the lesson: focus on now. The past is gone. The present is mine to live. That evening, while walking home, a car splashed muddy water on me. My anger exploded inside. My clothes were wet, my shoes ruined. I wanted to shout, but the car was already gone. I stood there, fists tight, then I closed my eyes and breathed. I imagined the old man's stone in my hand. I saw myself dropping it into the river. Slowly, the fire cooled. I whispered, "I choose peace." The anger did not disappear completely, but it did not burn me alive either. That was enough for today. When I finally sat in my room, I opened my notebook. I wrote, "Today life tested me. Fear came, regret came, anger came. But I did not lose. I saw them, named them, and let them go. My backpack feels lighter, even in the middle of chaos." I closed the notebook and touched the cover gently. For the first time in many years, I felt proud of myself. I was not perfect. I still stumbled, I still trembled. But I was different now. I was beginning to walk with a lighter heart. Before sleeping, I remembered the river. In my mind, I saw the water carrying leaves, carrying stones, carrying fire. Everything passed, nothing stayed. I whispered to myself, "I too can flow like this river. I too can let go." And in that moment, as my eyes closed, I realized something powerful. The backpack was never my enemy. It was only my teacher. The stones were lessons, and now they were beginning to disappear. Tomorrow, I knew, more tests would come. And I was ready. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. For once, I didn't feel the usual heaviness on my chest. My thoughts were still there, but softer, like distant echoes instead of shouting voices. I whispered, "Is this what freedom feels like?" I made tea and sat by the window. The city outside looked the same: cars, people, noise. But I felt different. The backpack was still on my shoulders, but lighter now. My body felt taller, my steps stronger. The world hadn't changed, but I had. At work, I noticed things I had never seen before. The smile of the receptionist, the way the sunlight fell on the office floor, the rhythm of typing on keyboards. I used to miss these details, trapped in fear and anger. Now they felt alive. During lunch, a colleague asked me, "Why do you look so calm today?" I laughed softly. "I'm just learning to let go," I said. She looked surprised, but her eyes were kind. For the first time, I felt I could share a little of my secret. Later that evening, I returned to the river. The old man was there, as always. He smiled when he saw me. "Ah," he said, "your eyes are lighter. You have dropped some stones." I nodded. "Yes. But I still feel the backpack. Will it ever be empty?" He shook his head gently. "The backpack is part of life. You cannot throw it away. But you can decide what to carry. Some stones you must keep for a while, but you don't have to carry them forever. Freedom is choosing what to hold." His words sank deep into me. I realized I had always tried to escape life, to hide from pain, to silence my thoughts. But now, I understood, the goal was not to run away. The goal was to carry only what made me grow, and release the rest. We sat in silence, watching the river. The sun set slowly, painting the water gold. The old man finally said, "Remember, the river is free because it flows. If it tried to hold everything, it would die. Flow, Maya. Let life move through you." I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped by my own mind. The voices of fear, regret, and anger still visited, but they no longer ruled me. I was beginning to walk beside them, not beneath them. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Freedom is not the end of problems. It is the beginning of peace inside problems." Today, I chose to flow. Today, I chose to live lighter. I closed the notebook and smiled. My heart felt warm. As I drifted into sleep, I saw myself standing on a hill with my backpack almost empty. The wind blew through my hair, the sky was wide, and my heart whispered, "You are learning to be free." For the first time, I truly believed those words. And so, my journey continued. The stones were still near, waiting to test me again. But I was no longer afraid. I had discovered a new kind of strength, soft, quiet, and steady. It was the strength of letting go. The next week began like any other. I felt lighter, freer, and calmer. But life has its own way of testing us when we least expect it. On Monday morning, I received bad news at work. A project I worked hard on was rejected without reason. My boss spoke harshly, blaming me for mistakes that were not mine. My chest burned. Anger rose like fire, regret whispered, "You should have done better," and fear shouted, "You will fail again." The stones were back, heavier than ever. I wanted to explode. I wanted to shout at my boss, to argue, to defend myself. My hands shook under the table. But I remembered the river. I closed my eyes for 1 second, breathed deeply, and imagined dropping each stone into the water. It was not easy. The voices screamed louder than before. But I didn't obey them. I spoke calmly, explained my side, and then stopped. My boss didn't change his mind, but I didn't lose myself either. I walked out of the room with quiet dignity. At lunch, regret came again. "You should have fought harder. You should have stayed silent. You should have done more." My mind tried to trap me. But I took out my notebook and wrote, "The past is gone. I keep the lesson, not the pain." On the way home, a car nearly hit me as it rushed through a red light. Fear gripped me so hard that my knees shook. My heart raced, but I closed my eyes and whispered, I am still here. I am safe now. Slowly, fear loosened its hold. That evening, I sat by the river. The old man looked at me quietly. You faced a heavy day, he said. I nodded. The stones came back so strong. I almost lost myself. He smiled gently. Stones will always return. Freedom is not once. It is every day. His words comforted me. I realized I had believed freedom meant never feeling fear, regret, or anger again. But now I understood, it meant learning to let go each time they returned. The practice itself was the freedom. I looked at the river and whispered, so I must keep flowing, again and again. The old man nodded. Yes. Even rivers meet storms, but they never stop. They bend, they rise, they continue. That is why they stay alive. At home, I opened my notebook and wrote, today was heavy. The stones returned, but I did not give up. I dropped them again. Freedom is practice. Peace is practice. Strength is practice. Writing these words felt like medicine for my heart. When I lay in bed, I thought about the day. It had been hard, painful, and exhausting. But deep inside, I felt proud. I had survived without drowning. I had walked through the storm with my backpack lighter than before. That was my victory. And as sleep came, I whispered to myself, I am still learning. I am still flowing. I am still free. My journey was far from over, but I could see something beautiful ahead, a life not ruled by stones, but guided by peace. The next day, something unusual happened. On the bus to work, I noticed a young woman sitting alone. Her face was pale, her shoulders bent, her eyes heavy. She reminded me of myself not long ago, before I learned about the backpack. She looked close to tears. I wanted to say something, but fear whispered, stay quiet. She doesn't need you. Then I remembered, the old fear was not my master anymore. I leaned forward and asked softly, are you okay? At first, she didn't reply. Then she sighed and said, I feel so tired. Like I'm carrying a mountain, but nobody sees it. My heart jumped. I knew that feeling. I whispered, maybe it's not a mountain. Maybe it's a backpack full of stones. She looked at me in surprise. A backpack? I nodded. Yes. Invisible, but heavy. Fear, regret, anger, they feel like stones. We all carry them. Her eyes widened. That's exactly how I feel. But how do you put them down? I smiled gently. I'm learning. You don't throw them away once. You let them go again and again. Like a river carrying leaves. She stared at me for a moment, then smiled faintly. That sounds peaceful. When she got off the bus, she whispered, thank you. It was only 2 words, but they felt powerful. For the first time, I realized my journey was not only about me. My story could help others with their own invisible backpacks. That evening, I told the old man what happened. He nodded wisely. When you drop your own stones, you create space to help others with theirs. Sharing your light does not make it weaker. It makes it brighter. His voice was calm as the river. His words touched me deeply. All my life, I had been focused only on my pain, my stones, my struggles. But now I saw something new. Freedom grows when it is shared. Helping others was another way of emptying my own mind. The next days, I started noticing more. A colleague hiding sadness behind a smile. A neighbor walking heavily as if carrying invisible weight. I didn't have all the answers, but I listened. And sometimes, listening alone was enough. One evening, I opened my notebook and wrote, "My backpack feels lighter when I help others with theirs. Peace multiplies when it is shared. Freedom is not only for me, it is for all of us." These words filled me with quiet joy. That night, I dreamed of walking on the road again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Others were walking beside me, each with their own backpacks. And together, we learned to put down stones, one by one, and walk lighter as a group. When I woke up, I smiled. I finally understood, my journey was never only mine. The river flows for everyone, not just for me. And now, I wanted to become like the river, calm, open, and carrying peace to whoever needed it. One evening, as I walked home, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was weak. She told me she wasn't feeling well and needed to see a doctor. Fear struck me harder than ever. This was not work or mistakes, this was family. I rushed to her house, my backpack suddenly heavier. On the bus, my thoughts spun out of control. What if she's very sick? What if I lose her? What if I'm not strong enough to take care of her? Fear filled me until I could hardly breathe. When I arrived, she was lying on the couch, pale but smiling. "Don't worry, it's probably nothing serious," she said. But inside, I felt the storm of fear. The stone in my backpack had doubled in size. I couldn't let it crush me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every possibility, every bad outcome. I wanted to fight fear, to push it away. But the old man's voice returned, "Fear is a guest, not a master." I closed my eyes and whispered, "You may visit, but I won't obey." The next morning, I sat with my mother at the clinic. I held her hand tightly. Fear sat beside me, whispering in my ear. But I focused on her hand, warm, soft, alive. In that moment, I chose to live in the present, not in imagined futures. The doctor said it was only exhaustion. Relief washed over me like cool water. I almost cried from joy. But more than relief, I felt something deeper. I had faced my darkest fear and survived. Fear came, but I did not collapse under it. Later that evening, I went to the river. The old man looked at me carefully. "Your eyes are different," he said. "You have seen fear at its worst." I nodded. "Yes. It tried to break me. But I remembered your words. I let it pass, like a storm." He smiled. "That is true strength. People think strength is holding tight. But real strength is letting go. You did not fight fear. You stood with it, breathed with it, and watched it leave. That is courage." His words sank into my soul. At home, I opened my notebook and wrote, "I faced my deepest fear. It shouted, but I stayed still. It tried to break me, but I let it pass. Fear is strong, but peace is stronger." I closed the book and pressed it to my heart. That night, I dreamed of the road again. This time, I came to a dark forest. Fear was waiting, tall and shadowy. But I didn't run. I walked straight through, carrying light in my hand. And the shadow slowly faded behind me. When I woke up, I felt different. My backpack was still on my shoulders, but inside was more space, more air. I realized the heaviest stone had already begun to crack. Fear could still visit me, but it would never own me again. I whispered into the morning light, "I am stronger now. Not because I fight, but because I let go." And for the first time, those words didn't feel like hope. They felt like truth. I thought regret was gone, crossed out in my notebook, turned into wisdom. But life has a way of testing the same lesson twice. One morning, I received a message from an old friend I had lost years ago. She wrote only one line, "Why did you leave me?" Her words cut deep. Memories came rushing back, our laughter, our secrets, the day we stopped speaking. I had been too proud, too angry. Now regret pulled me backward like a chain. You failed her. You failed the friendship, it whispered. The stone of regret felt heavier than before. I sat on my bed holding my phone, frozen. My mind repeated, if only you had said sorry. If only you had been kinder. If only you had tried harder. The past returned, alive and painful. That evening, I went to the river. The old man saw my face and nodded softly. Regret has returned, he said. I whispered, yes. I thought I let it go. But one message brought it all back. The stone is heavier than ever. He leaned on his fishing rod. Regret is a teacher, remember? Sometimes lessons return until you truly learn them. Maybe this time, the lesson is action. Not only to release the past, but to heal it with your present. His eyes were gentle but firm. His words struck me. I realized I had let go in silence, but never reached out, never repaired the broken bridge. Perhaps regret would keep visiting until I learned to build again, not just release. My hands trembled at the thought. That night, I opened my notebook. I wrote, I regret losing my friend. I regret my silence. But I still have today. I cannot change yesterday, but I can choose now. My pen pressed hard on the paper, carving truth into it. The next morning, I wrote back to her, I am sorry. I carried this regret for years. I was wrong to leave in silence. If you are willing, I'd like to meet and talk. My heart raced as I sent it. Fear and regret danced together in my chest. She didn't answer right away. Hours felt like days. But finally, her reply came, I'm willing. Let's meet this weekend. Relief and fear mixed together. The stone of regret was still there, but it felt lighter because I had chosen to face it with action. When I went to the river again, I told the old man. He smiled. Good. Regret is not only about letting go. It is also about making peace with what can still be healed. You are not just emptying your mind, you are opening your heart. That night, I wrote, regret returned, but I did not run. I faced it with courage. I reached out instead of hiding. Regret taught me to act, not only to release. Today, I learned another way to grow. I closed the notebook with a calm smile. And as I drifted into sleep, I saw myself walking the road again. This time, I met my friend on the path. We hugged, and one more stone slid out of my backpack. The road ahead looked brighter. The journey was not only mine anymore. I always thought anger was worst with strangers, at work, on the street, with people who didn't know me. But soon I discovered the truth. Anger is heaviest when it falls on the people you love. And that test came faster than I expected. One evening, I came home tired from work. My younger brother had borrowed my things without asking, and when I saw the mess, my chest exploded. Why can't you respect me? I shouted. My voice was sharp, and his eyes filled with hurt. The moment was small, but the damage was big. After he left the room, silence filled the house. Anger burned inside me, but regret also rose. I whispered, why do I hurt the people closest to me? Why is my fire so wild? That night, I went to the river, ashamed. The old man was sitting quietly, as always. I sat beside him and said, I thought I learned to control anger. But when it comes to my family, I lose myself. My voice was low, almost breaking. He nodded slowly. That is common. With strangers, you can hide your fire. But with family, masks fall. Your heart is open, so your fire burns deeper. But remember, fire is not evil. It is energy. You must guide it into light, not destruction. How do I do that? I asked. My hands were trembling. He pointed to the river. When fire meets water, it calms. Your water is compassion. When anger rises with family, add compassion. See their pain, their humanness, not only your own wound. His words made me think of my brother's face. He hadn't meant harm. He was careless, but not cruel. My anger had been louder than his mistake. I realized I had chosen fire over compassion, and that choice had hurt both of us. The next morning, I apologized to him. I'm sorry for shouting, I said. I was tired, but that's no excuse. You are important to me. He looked surprised, then smiled. It's okay, Maya. I should have asked before borrowing your things. That small exchange felt powerful. My anger had created distance, but compassion had built a bridge. I realized anger doesn't disappear by force, it transforms when you pour love on it. Fire plus water equals steam, something that rises instead of burns. In my notebook, I wrote, anger with family hurts most. But compassion is water. It cools the fire, heals the wound, and turns pain into connection. Today I chose compassion. Today the fire rose, but it did not destroy. That night, I dreamed again of the road. This time, my family walked beside me. I still carried the backpack, but I wasn't alone. When anger tried to jump into my bag, compassion pushed it back into the river. My steps felt lighter again. As the dream faded, I whispered to myself, anger can burn, but it can also rise. I choose to rise. And when I woke up, those words stayed with me like the sound of the flowing river, calm and clear. The days passed, and I noticed something new inside me. The voices of fear, regret, and anger still appeared, but softer now, like distant visitors instead of rulers. For the first time in years, I felt space inside my mind, like clear air after rain. One morning, I walked to the river early. The city was still quiet, the streets almost empty. As I sat on the bench, I realized I wasn't waiting for the old man this time. I was waiting for myself, for the silence, for the lesson hidden in stillness. When he finally arrived, he looked at me and smiled. Your eyes, he said, they shine differently now. Do you know why? I thought for a moment. Then I whispered, because my backpack is not full anymore. I can finally breathe. He nodded. Yes. You have learned what many people never discover. The goal is not to have no thoughts, no feelings, no struggles. The goal is to let them come and let them go. That is what it means to have an empty mind. His words sank deep into me. For years, I thought an empty mind meant silence, no problems, no pain. But now I understood. It meant space. Space to feel without drowning. Space to think without chains. Space to carry life lightly. I closed my eyes and listened to the river. I noticed every sound, the water moving, the birds calling, the wind touching my face. My mind was not blank, but it was clear. Thoughts came, but they passed like clouds in the sky. That day at work, a problem appeared suddenly. Normally, I would panic, regret mistakes, or get angry. But this time, I stayed calm. I solved what I could, accepted what I couldn't, and moved on. My colleagues asked, "How are you so peaceful?" I smiled and said simply, "I'm learning to let go." They didn't understand fully, but that was okay. The lesson was mine to carry. My peace didn't depend on them. It flowed from the river inside me, the space I had created in my own heart. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote, "An empty mind is not nothing. It is everything. It is freedom from being trapped, space for life to breathe, room for love to grow." Today, I learned that emptiness is the greatest fullness. When I closed my eyes, I dreamed of the road again. This time, my backpack was almost weightless. I could run, I could dance, I could fly. The road stretched far ahead, but it no longer frightened me. It welcomed me like an open sky. In the dream, the old man's voice echoed, "You don't need more time. You need more presence inside the time you already have." I smiled in my sleep, knowing these words were true. The river was no longer only outside me. It was flowing within. When I woke up, the morning light filled my room. I whispered, "My mind is not empty. It is free." And for the first time, those words felt like a gift I could carry for the rest of my life. The sky was gray when I woke. The air felt heavy, like a quiet warning. I made tea, tied my hair, and walked to the river. The water was higher than usual after night rain. My heart was calm but alert, as if something important was waiting for me. The bench was empty. The old man was not there. Instead, I found a folded note under a smooth stone. My name was on it in slow, careful letters. I opened it with shaking hands and read, "Today, walk without me. Be your own river." I put the note in my pocket and went to work. By noon, a storm of problems arrived. A client was angry. My boss said I must lead the call. Fear rushed through me like cold wind. My hands shook, but I placed both feet flat and breathed. I began the meeting, steady but soft. Then the projector failed. A colleague sighed loudly and said, "Maya, again?" His tone cut me. Anger rose like fire in my chest. I felt my face heat, my jaw harden. I closed my eyes for one breath. In that breath I saw the river. I remembered the stone in my palm, dropping into water. When I opened my eyes, I spoke clearly. "We will continue without slides." I gave short, honest answers. I owned my part and offered a simple plan. The call ended. We did not win, but we did not lose. My boss frowned and walked away. Regret knocked, whispering, "You should have done better." I wrote one line on a sticky note, "Keep the lesson, not the pain." The whisper faded. On the bus home, my phone buzzed. My old friend wrote, "I still don't trust you." The words hit like a stone. I wanted to defend myself, to explain everything. Instead, I placed compassion in front of my anger and wrote, "I understand." Before I could send more, my mother called. Her voice was weak. She had fainted and was in the clinic. Fear rose fast, filling my body with ice. I jumped off at the next stop and took a taxi. The city lights blurred like rain in my eyes. In the taxi, I practiced the only thing I truly own. I breathed. In for 4, out for 6. Inhale peace, exhale panic. I pictured 3 stones in my hands, then let them fall into clear water. By the time I arrived, my feet felt steady. My mother was sitting up, pale but smiling. The doctor said it was stress and dehydration. I held her hand and stayed present. No stories, no what-ifs. I brought water, asked simple questions, and listened like the river listens to the shore. Outside the clinic the sky finally opened. Rain washed the streets clean. I stood under the awning and cried quietly, not from fear, but relief. I reached for the note again. Be your own river. I understood. The river had always been inside me. That night I went home soaked and grateful. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Today I walked without my guide." I let fear pass, I cooled anger, I cut regret. My backpack is almost empty. I closed the book softly and knew tomorrow mattered. The next morning, the sky was clear. No storm, no heavy clouds, only sunlight touching every street. I walked slowly, feeling each step as if it were brand new. My backpack was still with me, but it felt almost weightless. I stopped at the river one last time. The old man wasn't there. Only the flowing water, sparkling like silver. And suddenly I realized, I no longer needed him to remind me. The river had already moved inside my heart. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Fear, regret, anger, you may still visit, but you are no longer my masters. You are just passing clouds in my sky." The words came softly, but they felt like thunder inside me. For years, I believed I was weak, trapped by my thoughts. But now I understood, real strength is not fighting harder, it is letting go sooner. Strength is choosing peace even when the storm knocks on your door. On the way home, I noticed people rushing, faces full of stress, shoulders bent under invisible weight. I wanted to tell each of them, you don't need to carry so many stones. You can put them down. You can be free. I couldn't speak to everyone, but I could speak here, in my story. Because maybe you, listening now, also carry fear. Maybe you wake with regret. Maybe anger burns inside you. And maybe you think it will never change. But I promise you, it can. If I could learn to empty my mind, so can you. Start small. Breathe. Notice the stone in your hand. Then drop it into the river of today. And when it comes back tomorrow, drop it again. Freedom is not one moment. It is a daily choice. A choice to live lighter, to flow like water, to make space in your mind for peace. And every time you choose this, you will walk freer, stronger, calmer. I looked at the sunset and smiled. My journey was not ending, because life never stops testing us. But I was no longer afraid of the tests. I had a new way of living, and it was simple: carry only what matters, release the rest. That night, I wrote my last line in the notebook: the mind is like the sky. Clouds come and go, but the sky remains. I am the sky, not the storm. I closed the notebook and knew the lesson was complete. So now I return, carrying light instead of stones, sharing this with you. Empty your mind, even for a moment. Let go of what hurts. Make space for what heals. You have only one life, don't waste it carrying what you don't need. And if this story touched you, if it gave you even one drop of peace, then walk with me. Subscribe, like, and comment below. Together, let's build a river of freedom, one empty mind at a time.